So as we've talked about this channelless experience, customer as a channel. Any examples that you guys have seen for how this has worked well for retailers in practice that we could talk about in more detail?
You know, I'll go back to the Petco example. I was very impressed. You know, they had just the entire, the store and the online experience was so well integrated. They had the same within an hour delivery. They used the DoorDash. They had the lockers in the store where you could come and pick up the goods. They also had, of course, online delivery. They had curbside, you know, same day pickup in the store. They had the whole experience, right? So they were really thinking during the holidays. They had the Santa in the store. They had actually local marketing campaigns where they were attracting children to get their families with the pets. Like literally they said their sales in that store went through the roof because of kind of that integration of the whole experience with marketing. Their marketing team did the special content for the store that it's the Union Square. I think to me it was just such a great example. And I kept thinking in my head, like, is that corporate marketing? Do they have their own marketing? Like, who did this content that was so curated for the store? Because it's just wonderful.
Nike does a really good job with that. You know, they really pull back from their retail footprint. So really concentrated on channels that they control from the retail area. But then you tie in things like Nike Run Club and the sneakers app and the collabs. Like they really can create products that are very specific to niches inside of their audience and then target them directly. And then with that brand loyalty and the sophistication of, oh, I've got one of 100, or, you know, I'm training for a marathon, now start giving me things that are specific for that. Like they really can dial into it. And I think, you know, I was a little bit nervous or incredulous when they started to pull out of a lot of retail channels, but I think they were ready to handle that and then turn that marketing back inside of themselves. And then the data that they're collecting now is all first-party data for them, so they're able to do even more and more understanding and personalization of what I would need.
I think an interesting element when you talk about, you know, personalization of the individual consumer, I think you're touching on with Petco, is being from Minnesota, you do Target runs almost every day. But the reality is just like we see in social channels where your friends are kind of giving you peer affirmations and in terms of influencers otherwise, but we're seeing it, and I appreciate it almost at the family level, is are they deploying technology that if my wife is going to Target, like how can the things I'm looking at or need or she needs when I do the runs, like how is that technology helping that collaborative buying experience, you know, from a household even?
That's great. So with all this in mind, Sitecore and Microsoft maybe specifically, how are your organizations driving innovation to tend to these changes within the landscape and the changing customer preferences?
Well, at Microsoft, we're very happy to be partnered with Sitecore. You know, again, as I mentioned before, I believe Sitecore and marketing just sits on a gold mine of information and what the organization, marketing and business and the senior leaders at retailers really need to thrive in the era of AI. So really removing the boundaries, you know, of how data could flow to be connected into from the content hub and what kind of content you had and what kind of campaigns you run into the supply chain. Right? I think that is the magic kind of between Sitecore and Microsoft, that together the value of tech to the customers is much higher than either one of us alone.
Absolutely, absolutely. Our tech has really been focused on impacting the customer experience. And to your point, all that data, all your content, all your assets, all the telemetry data about your customers, all your commerce data has really been focused on stitching together that end customer experience. But really what we've really opened our eyes to with this partnership with Microsoft is how to take all that data and all that intelligence and turn it back into your organization and the capabilities that generative AI is helping to accelerate that innovation inside an organization.
Awesome. Okay, so that partnership in mind, tell us a little bit about let's start with Sitecore. How is Sitecore positioned to help retailers, specifically with its composable solution set?
That's a good question. So, really when we look at our technology such as Content Hub has been your brain and your storage point of all your digital assets across all your brands, across all your retail channels. It's been your creation point, not only from the ability to deploy those assets into any channel, even social media, but equally a set of tools behind it in terms of what's my workflow. How do I collaboratively work within my organization in terms of managing those assets, publishing them through a calendar, etc. But again, this notion of generative AI, not only helping organizations scale that experience and that partnership with Microsoft, and where we're bringing AI into that to say, hey, I can make a more impactful changes and scalable changes, such as generating variations of images or product images. You talk about the human factor in AI, being able to generate, 3 or 4 different permutations of product copy to be able to target different segments. Those are the kind of opportunities by having that hub in the middle of your channel strategy, bringing in, that partnership with Microsoft around AI to really, act as a multiplier in terms of your individual's impact within your organization using Content Hub.
And then how does that power Sitecore's Commerce Cloud?
So in terms of Sitecore and Sitecore Commerce and our partnership, and when you look at capabilities around generative AI, and I think like the CES announcements that Microsoft's doing with Walmart, I think the challenge for retailers in the next couple of years is the fact that generative AI is going to open up a bunch of disruptive experiences, like the ability to plan for a party or plan for a camping trip, to be able to generate net new content. I think the challenge for retailers will be, where's their commerce technology maturity at, and where's the flexibility of their commerce technology to, again, turn that content experience or that experience that is opened up through generative AI into a transactional experience. So an example would be, yes, I want to plan that party, but can I generate a wish list or a collaborative purchase list that I can keep them like in a channel or in my brand or in my retail brand to collaboratively buy those products? So again, this challenge of generative AI is going to open up opportunities, but you need that technology to come in alongside it from a composable perspective to actually make it real.
And the Content Hub and the Commerce Cloud are native to Azure, which of course make it much more easier for the data to flow, to make that back-end interoperability that we've talked about, as well as the front end.
So one of the key themes in terms of our strategy around commerce at Sitecore is this notion of channels. This idea of no matter which channel you're transacting over, or your own digital storefronts or mobile, or even ingesting like order or customer data from a physical location, we can bring all that together. We can have that be a centralized hub to run your business off of from a commerce strategy perspective. Again, the unique opportunity that we've seen with Microsoft Cloud for Retail and Microsoft Fabric is also bringing all that data transactionally in real time, which means every product, every customer, every order brought real time into this AI environment. We talk about AI as being, AI stands for artificial intelligence. So how do you make a smarter intelligence? And it's bringing all that data together and then having a platform like Microsoft's to actually build upon and act upon.
Awesome. So Sean, what makes Avanade uniquely positioned to help with this intersection of content and commerce?
Yeah, I think one thing that we look at is how do we bring value to the clients as fast as possible? And with our partnerships with Sitecore and Microsoft, we have packages and accelerators and things that we can do to get into market as quickly as possible to start showing value from these new technologies, AI or whatever. What we hear from retailers over and over again is there's not a lack of demand for wanting to do it. They don't have the knowledge, they don't have the people, they don't have the resources in order to do that. So if we can accelerate them coming to market and then give them, not built on a shaky foundation, built on something for real, then we can start to expand upon that and really prove that ROI back into the organization of what these tools can bring to them. When we build out something for our retailers, we try to do it in a way that is as flexible as possible. So we have an idea, we want to start it, we want to prove it, and then continue to build on top of that, so that as times change, as retail expectations change, because they change with the wind and the season, we're able to interact with that. We want to show up as a retailer wherever our clients are. So if you think about Apple launching a new VR headset here in a month or so, what is that going to do? Your watches that you're wearing, who knows what technology is next? How do we make sure that all the content, all the commerce that we put all this investment into, we can then port it to wherever they need to be? And that's the key. And I think a lot of where our CMO clients are looking at and our chief digital officer clients are looking at, it's not these independent channels, it's everything everywhere. And that can be a very complex thing to do. But when we look at Content Cloud and Order Cloud and Azure and Fabric and tying even back into the back-end systems, if you think about, I need to pick it up in store, do I need to know that that commerce is there and ready to go, or am I going to show up with my order and they're like, yeah, we don't have it? That relationship is broken. So having real tools, having the relationships we have, having the accelerators that we built and the knowledge that we have can allow us to really put together real enterprise level solutions in a way where we can see where that value is, rather than having to spend a year or so trying to get things figured out and then hope it works.
Mm-hmm. And the unique value that Avanade really brings, and I've seen it time and time, is that intersection of business value and the technology. How do we build a journey, right, where we are starting to see the value, but it's not a one-off. It's what are our next 10 use cases that we're going to build up on the initial value across the channels, across the needs of the retailer, and holding us as Microsoft and the retailer accountable to really think about it in the journey and the business value creation.
It's obviously very important with today's digital customer.
It is, and measurement is important as well too. So you have to have a measurement strategy going into everything, so you know in real time, and that's where our data flowing quickly between these platforms can show, I don't have to wait 6 months for a report or 3 weeks for a report. I can see yesterday's report today, and now I can make really real-time decisions.
Awesome. Any closing thoughts? Things you thought we missed? Things you want retailers to do in 2024?
I think the biggest thing for retailers to think about is that relationship commerce with their customers. Customers can hook into a channel, they can find your brand, and they're going to grow up and they're going to find new channels and they're going to change what they want. But if that relationship can hang in there, then they will come back time and time to you again, no matter what you're selling. And I think that's important. It needs to be authentic, it needs to be genuine, it needs to change with my needs. And that's where all these tools and metrics and analytics can really help the retailers understand where to go next. So you're already there when I show up. And that's, to me, is where everybody needs to think about a year from now, 2 years from now, is where are people going to be and how do I get there first?
That's great.
Yeah, I like that McKinsey quote that came out, is that the next 2 to 3 years of innovation that retailers take on are going to find their success for the next 20 years. So I think we're entering this really interesting period where, yes, we kind of know consumer behaviors in terms of content and in channels, but I think there's also that opportunity in market with partners like Avanade to define and help retailers define that art of the possible.
And I think, to me, again, that human-centered approach, the tech only delivers value when it's applied in a way that makes a difference to your business process. It only makes a difference when you make it human-centered, right? A lot of times we see that the organizational change is extremely undervalued. That's why, again, Avanade is so important, right? What is our change management process? What is our organizational capability to actually sustain, whatever it is that we're putting out to either the customers or the employees? So I think that's one thing that we really have to keep, what is the culture of organization? Are we operating with agility to predict the next trend, right? Are we collecting all the customer dates in a way that will set us up for another revenue generation moment that we're not even thinking about today? all of that is really organizational, and I think it's going to rise in importance more than ever.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining me. This has been a great conversation, and thank you all for joining in and listening.